Bitcoin is absolutely smashing milestone after milestone. It's pretty much a case of every second day we're seeing a new all-time high. It's been pretty cool. But price discovery, that's the big part of where we're at right now in the market cycle. We've had our, we've gone through our bear market, we've gone through our consolidation and accumulation range for, the last 2 years. And now we're finally, after seeing, that sort of giddy rise up and sort of pop now, I guess, after the ETF release, where we're ushering a whole new, I guess, phase of the market cycle that, a lot of people might be their first proper bull run. But this is where things start to get usually pretty silly. We start to get into this uncharted territory for Bitcoin, which is where we've been for now, almost a week, if not longer. And it really begs the question of where are we going next? What's considered Bitcoin getting to, I guess, what you would say frothy levels. It's a bit hard to call it right now, just with, I guess, the ETF buying behavior that we're seeing, and touch on that next. But that's a big part of what's sort of driving this demand, and it's something we haven't ever seen before in the industry. So it's really hard to sort of understand, how does this cycle sort of size up to the previous ones, right? So a lot of you might have seen and heard about, this is the first time we've ever broken all-time highs pre-halving. And that's true, right? Like, what do you do with that sort of information? Like, last market cycle, for those of us that were here, you kind of were working on the idea that you got to the halving, there was some volatility to be expected, but as soon as you got that washout, boom, you knew you were off to the races. So it was a bit more easy to sort of plan out your investment strategy. But it seems like 2023, 2024, it's been a case of, if you didn't get in before the ETF, well, you pretty much haven't had any chance for a gentleman's entry. But look, we'll dive into that. I really have some good, information as to why I'm personally targeting 80 to 100K. And there's some confluence around that sort of region, and we'll jump into that. And we can use like options data as well to sort of help paint that picture as well. And obviously the halving as well. But look, I think the best thing we could do is probably just jump straight into that. I won't really stretch this video out for too long. I think if we just keep it sharp and to the point on that, do some altcoin analysis on the back end of that as well, should put us in a good spot for next week, and hopefully for the rest of this week, because it could be a really, really good week for reasons I'll share in a sec. But let's just jump in. Let's just start, where we sort of were speaking about. Like, it just seems like there's just nothing stopping the markets at the moment. We've even seen MicroStrategy selling off its own shares to access more Bitcoin. It's just never ending for these guys. And they've broken all-time highs. And I think even like pre-trading this morning, what was it today? The 13th of the 3rd. So yeah, like last night's trading, it was already just going nuts, like people bidding higher than the open market rates. So, it's been a pretty ballsy move from the team at MicroStrategy, but obviously it's paying off now. It could have easily gone the other way as well. But it just goes to show you, even in the face of markets going vertical, the guys that have been buying this whole time, they are not stopping buying. They're obviously calling for higher prices as well as a part of their strategy. But the big key takeaway is these Bitcoin ETF flows. So overnight, on the 12th of March, we had the first $1 billion day. So $1 billion worth of Bitcoin flowing into these ETFs, being settled. There was some selling on the GBTC product and the BTCO product, but it's been really just doesn't matter when you get 850 mil just from the IBIT, the BlackRock product. The selling there just really seems to not be present at all. And this is all pretty much in terms of what I'm looking at the moment. The sentiment that's being driven off the back of these data releases is really driving the market. I think I've mentioned in previous videos, the IBIT or BlackRock data is usually the last one to land, and it does happen to land just pre or around London market opens. And there is just this absolute rat race of people trying to open up positions leading into the US session after this big print hits, because it is also the biggest print as well. So in terms of sentiment, really easy. If we start seeing continued buying and increased buying, that's bullish sentiment. But if we get this one day where we don't see as much, or we see consecutive days of rates dropping, I think that's when we start to see some sort of like wind out of the sail type of moment for the Bitcoin market, which I guess right now we're not seeing. In terms of options data, this can be quite handy in terms of understanding what the smart money is pegging as what they see happening in the market. It's not always going to be 100%, hey, this is where price is going. But there is, I guess, with options, without diving too deep into it, the Greeks. So ways to, I guess, measure the volatility and the spreads and the, I guess, expected where the volatility lies within the options books, because that's all the options are. It's time versus volatility, and that's kind of how the value is mocked up. But the largest contract date with notional value locked up is the 29th of March, end of this month. I have to really think about that in case you couldn't see. So what this tells us is the most amount of bets on up or down is set for the end of this month. And with option contracts, like I mentioned, it's based on time and volatility. So it's not just because a contract expires on the last day of the month or towards the end of the month. That's usually not when these things are usually settled and redeemed or traded away. It's usually leading up to, because you need some time there for those options to be executed, or at least be somehow processed without losing its value completely. So I would say the data that we can sort of derive from this is looking at something called the gamma, or the gamma clouds. And we're currently in this phase right now. So anywhere from 67 to 80K is where the gamma sits right now. So that's kind of like the largest spread between the option book pricing data, which is, you can see right here, we've got this big peak here, big peak there. It's kind of like just showing that that's kind of where the most variation can occur. And that's the most likely point for volatility to occur as well. So that's all this is showing. Nothing super crazy, but also kind of have to take with a grain of salt. But if we can move over to a chart of Bitcoin, what we can do is start to use, I guess, tools that become more and more relevant in price discovery markets, where we can no longer look at the market linearly. We have to look at how we're going to move, from here, potentially logarithmically. We can use Fibonacci to help us. So if we go from the previous cycle high to what we now know as being the cycle range low, the 272 and the 1618, just your general ballpark Fibonacci ratios, they probably for me are painting up the most likely areas of interest. So the first target being here, 80,300, 562. So this is a Coinbase data as well. Every exchange will have different rates. But that lines up quite nicely with our options book data. So if we're anticipating that the smart money is putting their bets in such a way that 80K is where they see price headed towards, and we do have a pretty common Fibonacci technical level, which is a common practice to use in a trending market where we are in price discovery mode like we are right now. That kind of gives us two reasons to look at 80K quite closely. And, you could choose to use this as a blind exit or entry. Me personally, I'll just be watching to see what price does when we get here, because you could just have a simple case of we just bull flag from here and keep going. That's totally possible. Well, anything's really possible. But if we start to get like some crazy move and then just a big old dump, and we don't really start to look too strong all of a sudden, that might be a good exit signal, or just at least something of a reason to trim or take profits, potentially. It's a bit hard to say right now, but I mean, I think looking at what the ETFs do around these areas will be very, very telling. Whether or not they are subscribing to these methodologies, who knows? They might have their own sort of roundabout ways of marking up the markets. But yeah, the other number we're seeing here is 102K. We can extend this out further and just see what other price levels we see next. So the 2618 is next, so 155K. But I, to be quite honest, in a dream state, would rather just see this particular level hit first. So let's just say something like this. And then we start to form some sort of consolidation phase like this before we start to move again. And then that'll let me have a new range to draw new targets off of, to be honest. So this is kind of like the thought process that I have going into the market. Another thing just to take into account, which may or may not play out, is obviously the halvening. So we might see just around that halvening, that volatility kicks up, and with the target for the end of this month being 80K, there could be a good chance or reason we go sideways and down in that month where the halvening occurs. So a bit of a pump of the brake sort of moment. But another thing I want to point out that some people may or may not know, May tends to be a pretty bad month for markets in general. There's that old adage, stay away May. Tends to be a period of time where traditional finance, especially in the US, they're on holidays. Pretty much it. They're all in the Swiss Alps skiing. So if these are the guys that are constantly holding the accelerator down and driving a lot of this positive sentiment in the market, it's not unreasonable to sort of take away that there could be some slowing down of activity around that time of year, which is seasonal, it's expected. And that kind of might also line up with one of these fib levels. It might also line up with all of those option data tables that we were looking at before as well. So it kind of gives me enough reasons to look at 80 to 100K right now as the area of interest. And that's pretty much it. That's really what I'm looking at right now. I mean, in terms of like short-term trading or short-term trends, I mean, the 4 hours probably what I'm finding the most easiest to use right now. When you start to see vertical accumulation like this, it only really ends in one thing, and that's usually price continuation. And that's kind of what I'm expecting as well. But if we were to start to see anything bearish, to be honest, I'd want to start to see it on a 4 hour like this. And let's look at where price is right now. I'll just zoom in so this is a bit easier to see. You basically would want to see areas like this start to fail, which we haven't seen them do just yet in any meaningful way. So let's look at this one, for example. We did have the highs run and then a sell-off ensue, but the issue is that we never really lost the lows in a meaningful way. So if we were to, for example, have this this candle close, let's see if this works. If this were to look like this, I'd be much more concerned. That's usually a good sign for price to fall apart and head lower, just like that. But we haven't seen anything like that just yet. We still see the bids coming in, market sponsoring the moves. Every time they do go down, they sweep, but they come back to the inside. And then you start to see what's probably more important, higher highs. So sometimes we get these wicks. You can just go to a line chart. It's just a lot easier to see. But if we do have this drive lower, we have a higher high here relative to that high. We have a higher high here relative to that high. We have a higher high here relative to that high. So we keep seeing those higher highs forming and higher lows subsequently as well. Uptrend, very simple. So for me to see something break down on the lower time frames now, I probably want to see a pretty similar thing again. So where we fail to go higher than, say, these highs, and then we break down under this low, something like this. And it's a solid close as well. So not just a, I don't even know why I'm trying to do that. Not one of these jobbies, essentially. But yeah, we've seen even in the recent couple of days, we saw a sweep, and we've reclaimed those levels again. We're already starting to put in higher closes again. So for me, it's like the uptrend is still intact until proven otherwise. Looking at weekly timeframes, yeah, same reason to be bullish as we have been this whole way through. So closing higher than the weekly high, higher than the weekly high. So another way you could look at it is if we get to the end of this trading week, which is Monday next week, and this candle is actually down here, or even black, it's under the open. Could be another sign of reversal as well, if we wanted to play devil's advocate there. But yeah, me personally, I'm expecting continuation. Sometimes what you can do is take the previous week's candle, draw a range, and just simply extend off that range, moving the middle to the last week's high. Yeah, it kind of gives us a bit more of an idea of where, just using a simple measured move technique, where this market could be looking, to be pricing in either a zone where we're at a premium versus discount. So that's another way to look at it too, which kind of lines up nicely with that fib level as well. But that's it for Bitcoin for me. I don't think there's too much else of a reason to talk about it. There's too much more insights to really give away on it. Total 3, which is the altcoin market cap, which we've been tracking quite a bit on this channel. It's doing wonderful things. We were talking about in the start of this year how this was looking like it was primed for a breakout. We got that breakout now. And now we're heading into the key fib levels from here. So we've got the 0.5, 618, 786. I'm probably not too concerned about this one until it probably hits this high here, this previous weekly high. It lines up nicely also with the 618. So even from here, there is a chance for another 8% before we maybe have to be concerned about any sort of short-term pullbacks. What that would look like is, let me just do this so it's simple to see. We've all seen the head and shoulder sort of formation. It's nothing too controversial. You could see something like that before you see continuation. And that's just simply just pragmatic profit taking, and then this being the next key levels to where price might sort of save across the board on altcoins. So for me, this kind of looks great still. Not really too much to worry about there. And Bitcoin dominance is another one to look at too when you're looking at altcoins as well. There's still the chance that this continues to track up high before it finally may decide to turn around. But you could argue there might be a chance that it's starting to look a little bit weak now. But look, it's still early days. I think until we get after the halvening, you just don't know what's going to happen with Bitcoin dominance and the real alt season sort of taking off. But look, if I had to really try and guess where this one is going, let's do fibs. Yeah, still definitely this golden pocket here to look at from a Fibonacci perspective. And I quite like this area here, just a cluster there. So for me, 60% seems likely still before we get that complete reversal. And a lot of altcoins just have the ultimate run, which, we are expecting later this year. Other than that, I think we can start to look at some altcoins. Just check if I haven't missed anything. We've done the bullish and bearish. Yeah, look, I think we just dive into some altcoins. So firstly, I thought we'd look at Solana. I think previously when we were mapping this out, it was at this range consolidating, and we were talking about a potential sweep and move higher, targeting the 618 fib here and then the 786, so 163 and 205 respectively. It looks like it still wants to keep doing its thing and track higher. So that's the current range there. It's just done a similar job to what it did down here. I've had a sweep lower, sweep higher, sweep at the mid-range. So I'd expect continuation here. And yeah, my logical target would still be this one here. And then just to see what it does. Does it distribute or does it accumulate? Very simple. And then you'd look at that to be your next target up here. So for me, that still looks quite intact. Let's look at a monthly. Oops. That was terrible. Yeah, still all intact. We've only halfway through the month at the moment, but yeah, we'd have to really close under the last month high to set up any crazy bearish scenario, which I wouldn't see happening right now with the rest of the market the way it's looking. It's looking quite nice. So that's looking quite good. Ethereum. Yeah, this is getting in that upper nook now. I think I had some sell limit orders at the 786 level just to take some profit and bank it in my pocket. But yeah, 4,014 looks like that level's hit too. So if we just drill down again onto lower time frames, trend still seems to be intact again. So nothing groundbreaking here. But like I was talking about the previous lows before we drove higher, making sure we don't close under them. That'll be a big deal for trying to spot when this trend could be ending, something like that. That still looks intact. And to be honest with Ethereum, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the same thing we saw in Bitcoin with a lot of the pricing of Bitcoin in 2023 being the anticipation and expectation of the ETF being approved. So I know this has already been knocked back once, but the real decision for the ETF lands in funnily enough, in May as well. So potentially could be rallies all across the board into May, even on something like Ethereum for, again, technical and fundamental reasons as well. It is funny how all these things just happen to line up. So that's another one just to keep an eye on if it still has no chill and just wants to keep going. What's telling for me about Ethereum specifically, even if I remove all of this noise and I look at the chart just completely naked, these left shoulders here, if we put in a close above these levels, which is, you could argue that one there, that is 39.50. To me, we've taken out most of the resistance on this chart. Like we're really just in this pocket of reset and go. And I can sort of show you on Bitcoin what that pocket looked like as well. Bitcoin, USD. So that was pretty similar to this left shoulder here. Or you could argue, if you really wanted to, this shoulder here as well. And this was just the final pocket before we popped. Like that. Sharpen that up. So if I jump on like a 12-hour time frame, you can see that just looked like a steady grind out. There was nothing really groundbreaking about it. And if you look at ETH right now, pretty much doing the same thing. So if we can keep up the same behavior, and it doesn't look like it's moving too quickly to the upside, because it's the other thing you can look for to sort of plan for a reversal is a quick move, something like this, where you just accelerate. That tends to be a reason for the market to stop and pause and go the other way. But we're just not seeing any crazy accelerations at the moment. It's just a steady grind. So potentially good things coming for ETH too, right? It's looking quite good, quite interesting. Another one I've been tracking a lot previously, just more in my personal trading, has been Aptos as well. So another layer one. When it did initially release, it was quite the heavy performer in 2023. But what's interesting about Aptos is we're getting to some pretty interesting levels on it. Specifically, if I just use Fibonacci from the most recent highs to the most recent lows, we're in this golden pocket zone. Similar to like how we're trying to measure up and zone out where Bitcoin could be going from a price discovery perspective. But there's all reason to say that in a consolidation range here, and as soon as we break that, the next logical targets would be similar, 272, 618, so $24 and $30 from here. Could definitely be on the cards. Quite substantial moves. And it has been performing quite well against Bitcoin as well. Oh, my goodness. Oh, no, that is right. I did get it right. It looks like this is bottoming out as well. So unless there's something of a nasty surprise coming, I would expect this to potentially be just the Pico bottom for the Bitcoin pair as well. So good bit of confluence there. Quite a big fan of that. So definitely one to watch. But I would also caution that we have got the potential for this to reverse before it can go higher as well. So another way to potentially view this is as a trading range. So if we go from the high here, jump down on a 12-hour, that could be a low. Yep, it is. Yep, so you could get something like this, and we've had a sweep come to the mid-range. The mid-range is always a decision point, so you could easily just fail and go lower here, especially if the rest of the market starts to, for some reason, show weakness. That could be the case. But right now, I'm seeing a bullish reaccumulation, sort of bit of price action there, where we swept lower and then closed positively, white in my case, or green on your charts maybe. So yeah, you'd expect this to sort of walk out. So you could potentially wait till we get to the top of this range, and that could be just a bit of a confirmation play. That's pretty much how I'm playing this at the moment. But Aptos is looking quite interesting as well. Other charts to look at with, just because why not? Who's probably got the most data? Let's just go Binance. Might be enough for us anyway. So the meme coin, obviously, genre has been high performers lately. So again, you don't sort of fight the trend. You kind of just accept it and get on if you want to, or you can just stay away. Again, completely up to you. But pretty interesting spot for price action here. Again, we've had that high taken. We've had that low taken. We've put in a higher high, which is here. So from here, you really want to see price continue to stabilize, accumulate on lower timeframes, and really watch for that breakout here, and might give you a reaccumulation up here. So that could look something like this on a lower time frame, where it just goes. So again, I wouldn't expect momentum to leave the meme coin industry until there's something absolutely crazy or silly that happens. For example, like a Doge Friday style event from last cycle. Not to say this can happen to WIF, but I mean, as much as you want to potentially say it's a meme and, it means nothing, it does mean something to a lot of people. Everyone's in crypto for a reason. So, as long as there's continued interest in the meme subculture, assets like this will always continue to run, in my opinion. So yeah, I would say that's one to watch as well. Akash Network, bit annoyed I didn't get onto this sooner, to be honest. It seemed like a pretty easy play when in hindsight. I mean, that's how things always are. But I'm not personally exposed to this one, but it's one that I've just been tracking out of interest. AI, sort of layer one token. So layer ones generally, from my perspective, are an easier one to understand how to invest in, just because you do consume the tokens as utility for that network to be able to use for gas fees, transact with, make liquidity pools, all that sort of stuff. But very, very simply, very bullish week previously. So the play would be to, again, look for continuation the following week. So jumping down to like a daily, we're really just seeing at the moment a bit of weakness and failure to go higher. Also just seems to be just in a general trading range here, which I'm just going to draw out. So let's get like this. Probably have to sharpen that up when I get down to lower time frames. No, that seems to look okay. I'm just going to go off 2 hour just because I see more candles, but pretty simply here, we've done this a couple times now. We've got the first high, the next subsequent low. We've had a throwout here, a lot of throwouts there, a big throwout here, and now we're just in the mid-range trying to make a decision. So similarly, you could argue we were making the decision here at the mid-range, which we did get, but we just got a failure to break out and go higher. So this could have just been because Bitcoin was tanking at the same time, just wasn't timed correctly. But right now, what I'm seeing is mid-range activity, and we've put in a high. So from here, you just want to see continued stepping out, a trend to form, and that could be another good reason to get into something like this if it's you're looking for AI exposure in a different way. So that might be another one to keep on the watch list, in my opinion. Other than that, I think we could do altcoins forever. It's just that, I guess, part of the market cycle. But if there's anything you'd want to get charted up, just leave it in the comments below and I'll definitely get to it and let you know my thoughts. But at the end of the day, things are looking great. Price discovery for me, this is what I've been looking forward to since the last bull market. I've been practicing a lot in terms of my profit taking and my strategy and my plan, etc. So, I hope everyone's ready for a lot of sleepless nights. But more than anything, if there's anything you're not sure about or want explained a bit better, now's the time, I think, to probably do your research and find out what you need to know. Because we don't know if we're going to get a similar cycle as we have in the past. We just won't know until it happens, right? All we can do is play it level by level, as we sort of covered today, and just see what the rest of the market does, right? And just make our investments smart. And like I said, remember to take those profits when you plan to. But other than that, I'll see you guys all next week. And again, leave anything in the comments of what you'd like to see. Subscribe if you haven't already. Just trying to grow this channel and hopefully provide continual value to people. So if there's anyone you think could value from this video, please do share. That'd be great. But other than that, see you next time. Ta.